Coal Chamber is a violently energetic band that burst onto the new metal scene in early 90s LA. Coal Chamber burned bright and loud before exploding spectacularly, only to reunite years later. These are the gnarly origins of Coal Chamber.
You have a lot of these, but you can't deny capital S songs, that Loco is a capital S song that absolutely has stayed with people for decades. Tell us about the making of that song and like how it came to how it was born in your head and how what it was like to have it break.
We were in Hollywood. I remember it like it was yesterday. We were in Hollywood. It's about 3 p.m. in the afternoon, and we were rehearsing. And when I say rehearsing, I mean trying to come up with our sound. We had not had a song yet. And then Meeks, I remember this. Meeks said, like, well, who are we? Like, we just need to figure out who the fuck we are. And I go, well, I just think we're crazy for doing this. And Meeks is like, yeah, crazy, like Loco. And I was like, ooh, like Loco. And then and he came up with dun 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 dun. And as simple as that riff is, and most people don't know that in music, keep it simple, stupid, you're going to live forever. And right. That song surely did. I knew it was an ode to his culture and to the people that were coming to see us, but I had no idea that what it would do for the band. It got us signed. It got us packed clubs. It got us around the world. It got us on tour with Pantera 3 or 4 times, got us on tour with Black Sabbath around the world in soccer stadiums, Megadeth. I mean, I could go on and on and on. Got us Sharon Osbourne. I mean, Loco. Wow. So when you talk about Loco, and what's funny is I don't have a fucking Loco tattoo, and my wife gets on me, I would say like once a month.
Can you tell us about the video?
In my apartment in Hollywood where we all lived, and Rayna lived in the kitchen, and we traded top ramen. And we were starving. And I used to go to AM/PM and steal us food. And Trader Joe's, like, I swear to God, they supported us in the early days. I'd walk out with so much food. I have no idea how they didn't know we were stealing food every single fucking day. There was an ice cream truck that cruised around the neighborhood.
What?
And so when it's hot as fuck in LA and you're sitting, inside a small little, 400 square foot apartment, when that guy cruises around, you run outside. And me and Meeks would run outside. And we'd meet this Mexican cat and be like, what's up? And we just got to know him. And that's why that took us, that thing took its shape. Because I was like, we would always come back and go, imagine if that dude looked like this. Imagine if that guy peeked his head out of that ice cream truck and he was all fucked up. This creepy ass dude with long fingernails and this and that. So when it came time, we needed artwork. I mean, that's just what came out of us. It was very natural. We came from a thing in the early 90s that was coming out in the late 80s.
Yeah.
So it was like, where's the alcohol? Where's the cocaine? And where's the strippers? Are they coming over after the show? I mean, it was, it was pretty insane.
So tell us a bit about the man you were when you started Coal Chamber.
I was living in Hollywood at the time. I just got my first apartment after a very kind of rough start. I was looking for a band, and I put out an ad in something called Rock City News, which was like kind of a local news rag of bands and what was going on in town. Meeks answered. He came over a day or two later, walked up with hair down his back and a guitar slung over his shoulder. Asked me a bunch of influences. What are my influences? And I told him everything from punk rock to gothic stuff, psychobilly. I love metal. I love 4 on the floor rockabilly stuff. So I like it to bob your head, whatever kind of music we make. He told me his influences. And then from there, that was it. What kind of man was I? I was young, dumb, dealing marijuana heavily. There was a time in Hollywood that if you got any weed at all, it was coming from me. I was rolling pretty hard with some scary people, to be honest with you. And that's it. From there, we just, we started, we found a rehearsal room. We started rehearsing daily. We were balls to the wall, full burner on sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Let's drink a bottle of whiskey and ride on top of the bus at 70 miles an hour. Like, does anybody have acid? Like, I mean, it was fucking on. One of the only concerts we ever canceled was because Meeks and I ended up taking mushrooms and there was about 2,800 tickets sold somewhere in the Midwest. I forget. And I came on stage. I grabbed the microphone. I looked at him. We were starting Loco, and we both started laughing. And I just was like, I can't do this. He's like, I can't do it either. And I actually said, to the whole crowd, hey, we're fucked up on mushrooms. There's no way we can do this show. But if you don't return your ticket, we're going to hang out with everybody. We're going to come to the bar. We're going to hang out all night long. There was one ticket refunded out of 2,800 people. And we hung out all night till 1 o'clock in the morning with every single person, buying shots, what have you. I mean, it was amazing. It's actually in my autobiography, one of the craziest times. And this was at a time when Hollywood was dead. LA was dead. The hair scene had killed it, but then when grunge came, because grunge never really hit LA, there wasn't bands coming out of LA copying that scene, so it was a dead zone. And then the scene kind of started up. Korn was from Orange County. They were busing people up to their LA shows to make sure that people were there, which I thought was brilliant and genius.
Yeah.
Genius. And Coal Chamber was selling out the Roxy and the Whiskey. This was long before System of a Down was doing their thing. Just rehearsing and playing shows and doing what we could to make ourselves known, really in a dead zone. So we would get out in vans and we would take huge 5-gallon buckets full of paste, would go out and flyer every single show that everybody else had. We had backpacks full of tapes. We normally gave away 250 shirts every time we played. Next thing you know, you're walking around LA and you couldn't go anywhere without seeing a Coal Chamber shirt.
I mean, you guys are one of the forefathers. I mean, new metal gets a bad rap. It's the middle child of metal history. There's a lot of theories about it. I mean, it was about the new metal that was happening right then, and there was a lot of exciting energy around it, especially with your band. I mean, frenetic energy for me is Coal Chamber. Like that's sort of the essence of it, like soul, but that frenetic energy. What's your take on the whole word and the genre and where you fit in within it?
I mean, Coal Chamber was volatile, visceral, and real. I mean, we were about as sex, drugs, and rock and roll as it came. I mean, to be honest with you, I never ran from the moniker. I thought it was great. It was new and it was metal. I never ran from it. Even when I left the band, I didn't leave the band because the genre was dying. And actually, when people say, it's a stepchild or it's this, it's that, I say, like, really? Because Korn has never been not big. Deftones has never been bigger. I think it was the later bands that came in that were purified, homogenized milk toast version of what was so volatile, visceral, and in your face. I mean, Korn back in the day, Deftones back in the day, even before they got signed, Coal Chamber before we got signed. I mean, before we got signed, we would do shows at the Whiskey, and those shows would get closed down because we had what was called the Southgate crew coming to see us, which was why we did Loco, El Cucuy, why I have Mexican and Mayan artwork actually tattooed all over me. Not only because I was the only white kid in my school in San Juan Capistrano when I was younger, but to pay homage to the Mexican culture. And we had a very insane fan base that used to come see us at the Whiskey, and fights would break out, and it was not, it wasn't what it was later with the second group of bands.
Yeah. How do you think the audience that you attracted affected this energy? Like the kind of people, like you're saying, you had like this very strong, like quite tough, like Mexican fan base in that kind of a world. How did the Coal Chamber fan impact your need to do that, to absolutely destroy? Because I feel like you're doing it for them as well. You're doing it for them. You're saying, if you carry a flag for us, we're going to show you that there's meaning to that sort of thing.
Yeah, well said. Actually, if you carry a flag for us, well said. And that's how it was with us back in the day. And there's nothing that you could be but volatile and visceral with a show when you've got, the Southgate crew packing the club, and if there's lowriders outside and it's on. So there was a big difference between a lot of the bands. I mean, obviously, Deftones did their thing. Korn was, more rap and metal. And we were more like this metal goth, but there's a goth thing that runs through Mexican culture that I don't know if you're familiar with, like prayers and a lot of that, right? There's a heavy gang goth culture that runs. I think they tapped into Meigs because in the beginning he used to wear a bandana over his face, and what is now like fisherman's hat, but back then it was a gangster hat, and I think people started to see that and started coming out, and that's how we formed. And our crews were very different. The System of a Down crew is an Armenian crew. The Deftones crew is a completely different crew. The Korn crew that showed up was completely different, and then our crew was really dangerous. It was very much a, hey man, it's our band against yours. We all united for shows, don't get me wrong, but there was a culture of like, I'm gonna get you. I love my first band. The fact that we went apart wasn't because the new metal thing was breaking or whatever. I mean, we were at the top of our game. I had my own tour bus. I didn't want to tell you how much money we were making. I just felt like I needed a change, and those guys needed to get it together. I had a wife and kids at home, and it was business for me. And it became like, okay, sex, drugs, and rock and roll, that's good. But like, now we got to chill out.
Yeah.
We got to chill out on some of those things now. And it didn't happen that way. Right.
Yeah.
So I left.
Did you ever feel scared when everything was getting pretty wild? Like, did you ever feel scared for everyone that they were going to make it through?
Well, it's why I left, to be honest with you. Yeah. If you have a friend and you make money with them, and with their money, they are tearing their life apart, and you keep giving them money, then muck it fast. You're fucking with them now. So I cut off my own nose to despite my own face, is how you say it. And I shut off all of my monetary income to leave, to have them get their shit together. And it worked. It took a lot of years, but it worked.
Yeah.
I mean, Mikey is extremely fucking successful. Extremely. Like, he's building Kenny Chetney's house right now. He just worked on Cher's house. He did Snoop Dogg's compound. And Meeks is doing great. He's got his shit together, man. Married. He's in another band. And it's just good to see those guys doing well. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like you speak to Rayna and stuff, and yeah.
No, Rayna, no one speaks to Rayna.
Yeah.
Rayna is mentally ill.
Yeah, that's
Rayna's in a halfway house, mentally ill, doesn't recognize anyone. Her family put her in a asylum. It's in the middle of us touring on the second record, she started locking herself in her hotel room because she's seen ghosts. Which, oddly enough, in Boston, when it happened, when we were recording, and she said, I can't get up off my bed, there's people here dressed in Victorian outfits holding me on my bed, and they lock the door from the inside. I could hear people in her room talking to her on this property that was from the 1700s. So quite prophetically, maybe she was a prophet and seeing these things, but eventually it destroyed her life. And so no, we don't speak to her. I would love to do nothing but hug her. Everybody else I've ever worked with, I'm on great terms with.
That's awesome, and that's powerful, and that's, I guess, like you being strong and having this streetwise culture. That the split of that is, you'll fight to protect your family and the people you care about, but you've also got that loyalty that even when stuff goes wrong, you can make peace. And I think that's a really important quality. And I think that's
I think with anybody in the band, that the two words that get in the way are ego and id. So your id and your ego. I've just never put on those outfits. Don't get me wrong. If you have the microphone, if I had, if it's a half an hour before stage and maybe 10 minutes after, like I'm gone. Don't talk to me. I'm not there 100%. I'm not paying attention to you at all. Other than that, no. So those are the two things that mess things up. We were speaking about Rayna actually before we went to Sick New World, and everybody wishes that we certainly could reach out, but she wouldn't even. I don't think she'd even be able to have a conversation. Or if you go online, you'll find out that she was actually missing. The mind is a fragile thing.
Yes.
Right. I had a very, very good friend of mine say to me one time, like, we're all only hanging on by a thread.
Who are some artists that believed in you and said important things to you when you were starting the band? And who are some artists that maybe weren't on board and pushed you to prove them wrong?
Glenn Danzig.
Yep.
Ozzy Osbourne and Phil Anselmo.
What have they said? Anything that stuck with you?
Yeah. dude, don't give a fuck what anybody says. Keep going.
Yeah.
Do what you do on your own terms for you. Make yourself happy. Make the music you want. Don't ever follow in anybody's fucking footsteps, and just keep your head down and go. Every single one of those dudes is saying the same thing, right, Anastasia? Anybody I'm forgetting?
Yeah, you got it. You got it.
What else?
I was going to say, but then there was one called Stanley.
Yeah, that's in the book. I did have one of my childhood heroes say to me on the day I got a record deal, mind you, that no, you don't want to do this. Just keep your day job. You're going to hate this life. Yeah.
What are 3 pivotal moments in the early days of Coal Chamber that you would say helped define the band, good or bad?
The first time we sold out the Whiskey and the Roxy.
Yep.
The first time Roadrunner Records heard our demo.
Yep.
And the first week we were on tour with Pantera. Actually, wrong, Danzig. Our first tour was with Danzig. We went out with Downset. We were out 3 or 4 shows. Shows weren't doing very well, and they weren't, frankly, treating us very well. And we were playing the Trocadero in Philadelphia. I'll never forget it. There was about 30 people in attendance. I looked up into a balcony because the place held like 2,000 people. No one was there, but there's one lone guy in the balcony. I was a massive Danzig fan. That's when I was a bricklayer. That's all I listened to was Danzig. Glenn came up to me and said, "We just kicked Power Man 5000 off the tour. We want Coal Chamber on the tour. We're playing Philadelphia tomorrow night, sold out. Can you join?" And I said, "I'm out of here." And that was it. Not only did we join the Danzig tour, but I became great friends with him. He's actually writing the foreword to my autobiography right now.
Final question. What do you want Coal Chamber's legacy to be? Which is kind of related to what you just said.
A street band that was volatile, visceral, sex, drugs, and rock and roll, that came up and did it right on our own terms, made a mark, made a scar, and did our own thing on our own terms. And that actually broke us up, but it is what it is. If you want something real, it's going to come with a fucking price. And we're about as real as you get, baby. So hypnotic.